Hi everybody. So today class is we have to discuss about the physiology of the nose. Okay. So as we know, the nose is very important, and it has got cosmetic importance. It gives the beauty of the of the face, but we should not forget at the same time it also has some physiological function. If those functions are disordered, our life will be morbidity will be very high. So that is the reason while shaping the nose, we should not forget that we have to take care of the physiology. If there is disorder of physiology, then there will be a lot of problems. So let us come to know what are the different functions of the nose. That is called physiology of nose. Yeah. So nose has got 6 functions. Respiration means helps in respiration. It's not the organ of respiration, it helps in respiration. Air conditioning, protection of the lower airway, vocal resonance, nasal reflex function, and olfaction. So out of these 6, olfaction is least important for a human being. Maybe for the lower animals it is important because it has got protection mechanism, but for a human being that protection is not required, and olfaction is only for some type of enjoyment. So that is the reason olfaction is least important for a human being. Uh, Apart from that, all other functions like help in respiration, air conditioning, protection of lower airways, all these are important, very important. So let us go one by one and discuss what are those. Yeah. So how it helps in respiration? It is a natural path of breathing. It's not the organ of breathing. As you know, on the organ of breathing is the lung, and respiratory functions, anything take place in the alveolus of the lung. But uh, while coming to the lung, while reaching the alveolus, it has to go through the natural pathway, and this natural pathway is called nose or nasal cavity. So during the process, during passing through the nose, there occur certain changes, and so that the oxygen can easily diffuse into the blood circulation. Okay. Now, during expiration, sinus ventilated by EDS current produced at the region of the laminae. So, in the anatomy classes, we have discussed one elevated area, small elevated area that is called laminae at the region of nasal valve. So, what happened? Normally, lungs uh, were ventilated during inspiration, empty during expiration. Just opposite happens for the sinuses. While expiration, while air is going outside, in this laminae region, it got obstructed a little bit. Some amount of air, ID's current goes up, and that helps in ventilating the sinuses. That will enter the sinuses. And during inspiration, what happens? The negative pressure created inside the nasal cavity, that is called Bernoulli's theorem. Through this Bernoulli's theorem, as per Bernoulli's theorem, this negative pressure is created, and the air from the sinuses are coming out, and the sinuses are emptied. Okay, so that's how during expiration it receives the air. During inspiration, it is emptied. The sinuses are emptied. Now, about the nasal cycle, so this is normal, and it is different for different individual. The characteristic will be different. For some person, it may be the cycle may be 3 hours. Some person cycle may be 2 hours. So, what exactly happens in nasal cycle? So, sometimes there will be congestion of the nasal mucosa. After sometimes there will be decongestion of the nasal mucosa. So congestion and decongestion is a natural phenomenon for the nasal epithelium, and it goes on. But fortunately, we don't perceive it. We cannot understand that is going on silently inside us. But there is a problem where patient can able to know the nasal cycle. That problem is called allergic rhinitis. In case of allergy, there is already some amount of edema because of allergy, and on the setting of this allergy, if more edema occurs because of nasal cycle, then suddenly patient able to know that his nose having congested and there is nasal obstruction. And after some times when decongestion occurs, patient can feel nasal cavity is free. So in the setting of allergic rhinitis, patient can feel the nasal cycle. Otherwise, for normal individual, though it is there for every individual, they cannot feel it. Now the air conditioning. So during the passage to the nasal cavity, there are certain changes into the air. Okay, so there are certain changes to the air. Uh, because of that, oxygen are able to diffuse properly into the blood circulation. So what are the changes? And you know today a lot of pollutions are there. Some dust particles also will be there. Those also need to be purified. Otherwise, there will be a deposit in the lung, and every time some amount of deposition can lead to some problems. So first one is the filtration and purification occur in the nasal cavity first. So more than the particle size more than 0.5 micrometer are trapped inside the nasal cavity. So how these are trapped? Our nasal cavity are having vibrissae, yes, hairs in the vestibule, and inside in the nasal cavity proper also there are epithelium. In these epithelium there is a blanket of mucosa as well as cilia. So this cilia and the mucosa also help in trapping the small particles, a larger particle which is more than 0.5 micrometer. Okay, so all these particles do not enter the lung field, they are trapped inside the nasal cavity. Now temperature control, because if the air is cool, then again there is a problem in diffusion. Oxygen from the air cannot enter into the blood circulation. So our body need to change the temperature of inspired air into body temperature, that is 37 degrees. Now temperature come to near body level, that is around 37 degree in 1/4 of a second. That means air from interior nares to posterior nares. It passes, it takes around 1/4 of a second. That means, yes, 1/4 of a second. So in these 1/4 of a second, the temperature changes. Suppose outside temperature is 10 degree. 10 degree to 37 degree, it takes 1/4 second. Even sometimes the outside temperature is 0 degree. Okay, there also it takes 1/4 of a second to make the air 37 degree. From here we can understand how much powerful air conditioner this is. Okay, air conditioner is so powerful. Now humidity, again one more important characteristic for diffusion. uh, Air we are inspiring should have more than 75% humidity. Otherwise, again, there will be a problem of diffusion. About 1 liter of water is evaporated in a day from the nasal surface epithelium because there is a mucous blanket. There is a mucous blanket, and that blanket, for production of that blanket, it needs to secrete the mucus and the serous secretions. For that, 1 liter of fluid are secreted from the nasal cavity. Now, last one is the nasopulmonary reflex. So there is a reflex which is called nasopulmonary reflex. That means if the nasal cavity is not well ventilated, okay, that if the nasal cavity are not well ventilated, the diffusion of oxygen from the alveolus will not be proper. That is called nasopulmonary reflex. Sometimes what happens, patient come to us that I'm having dyspnea, breathlessness, and we send the patient to some pulmonologist or medicine specialist, and they do all type of tests. After that, everything comes normal. Cardiologist, everything comes normal. Pulmonary function test and the cardiological evaluation, everything comes normal. Then again, when patient comes back to us, when we evaluate, we saw that there is a blockage in the nasal cavity. Okay, so when we correct this septum or anything which is blocking the airflow and nasal cavity we made more ventilated, the time patient relieved from the dyspnea. That means there is a reflex which is called nasopulmonary reflex, which is acting here, working here. Yeah. The protection of lower airway. This is one of the important function, and for protecting lower airways, we are also having the larynx. There are different level of protection. One of the level is nose, and the level is larynx. Larynx acts in such a way that food materials while swallowing should not enter into the air passages. Similarly, nose also protect the airway. How it protect the airway? Number one is mucociliary mechanism. I have already told you nasal epithelium is a respiratory epithelium, and it is pseudostratified columnar ciliated epithelium. Pseudostratified columnar ciliated epithelium. So this epithelium is rich in goblet cells. This mucosa is in goblet cells, mucous glands, and serous glands. So that means it secretes a lot of fluid in the form of mucus, serous secretions, and mucosa moves 5 to 10 mm per minute. Now complete mucus clear every 10 to 20 minutes, and for that 600 to 700 ml of nasal secretion occurs in 24 hours. Okay, so now ciliary bit frequency is 10 to 20 times per second. So these are how I help in protecting the lower airways. Now, at the same time, there are certain enzymes and immunoglobulins secreted from the nasal mucosa. Those are lysozymes, IgA, IgE interferon. So this gives local immunity in the nasal cavity. Okay, so these are for enzymes and immunoglobulins. Sneezing is a protective mechanism. Some heavy particles or bigger particle trapped inside the nasal cavity or in the vibrissae, it causes reactions. That means it irritates the nasal mucosa, and there occur violent sneezing. Because of the violent sneezing, that dust particle is expelled forcefully out of the nasal cavity. So that is also a protective mechanism, because this particle, if nose is not there, directly enter into the lung or the alveolus, causing damage. Okay, so these are the protecting mechanism of lower airways. Now I can see here the schematic diagram of the nasal epithelium, where these are called pseudostratified columnar ciliated epithelium, and one cilia has been shown. Now just you can see this is the nasal epithelium. Above this, there are two layers of secretions, blanket. This is called mucosal blanket. There are two layers. This is called saw layer, and above this it is called gel layer. Gel layer is little thicker layer, whereas the saw layer is water layer. That means serous layer. As you know, the nasal mucosa has got serous and mucinous glands. So usually this saw layer is secreted by the serous glands, whereas the gel layer is secreted by the mucinous gland. So what exactly happened here? This gel layer is, because of bitting of the cilia, the gel layer slowly moved posteriorly. Just I'll show one picture you can understand. Yeah. So here you can see this is gel layer, this is saw layer. Now this is anterior. Okay, this is posterior. Anterior and posterior. So what happened normally? This is the cilia. It goes up into the gel layer, and like this it moves posteriorly. During this process, some amount of gel layer is moving. It moves the gel layer posteriorly. Okay. Now then it enter into the saw layer, and it come to its normal position through the saw layer. It do not enter the gel layer. Again it turns like this. So in this process, while bitting posteriorly, it move the gel layer slowly back towards the choana posteriorly, and it return to normal. So this is how the cilia bits and make the gel layer move posteriorly. Yeah. So next important function is the vocal resonance. We are, as a human being, we are able to speak. We produce different voice. Okay. Speech production is there only for human being, not for any other animals. Animal can produce certain sound, but speech production is not there. So sound can be produced by the larynx vibration, but it has been converted to speech by different mechanism at different organ level, like pharynx, oral cavity, tongue, and nasal cavity. They do different actions. By that, this sound has been converted to the speech, which human being can speak. So, what is the contribution of the nose and sinuses is nasal resonance. Nasal resonance means nasal cavity acts as a resonating chamber for a certain consonant like M, N, and G. So you cannot speak M, N if your nose is closed. You can see here M, M. So you cannot speak M because for that you need to resonate inside the nasal cavity or sinuses. So I can give one example. One child suppose came to OPD. You ask the child to tell mama. He's telling baba. How it is possible? It is just because of nasal block. Because of nasal obstruction, air is not going and there is no resonating. So when you speak mama, the child will tell baba. So that indicates that there is nasal obstruction. So this vocal resonating function is important for speech production. Otherwise, certain M, N, N, G will not be pronounced by the person or the child. Yeah. So next is the nasal reflexes. Already we have discussed some of the reflexes like sneezing is a reflex. There are some other reflex like at the smell of good food, saliva and gastric secretion comes. This is one type of reflex. By seeing the food also sometimes comes. By smelling the foods, the saliva secretion comes and gastric secretion comes. This is because of one reflex mechanism. Now coming to B is the sneezing already we have discussed, and because bigger particle when they're trapped at the level of vibrissae or at the level of nasal epithelium, they irritate the nasal cavity and there occur violent sneezing and the particle are expelled out forcefully from the nasal cavity. It has got protective function also. Okay, this is one of the reflex. The nasobronchial reflex and nasopulmonary reflex. Already we have discussed what is nasobronchial pulmonary, almost same, but there is a little bit difference. In nasobronchial reflex, when the nasal cavity is not well ventilated, the bronchus are little bit constricted. It stays constricted. So that is the reason air will not go properly into and ventilate the alveolus. If air will not go properly to ventilate the alveolus, definitely the diffusion of oxygen will be less. And in nasal pulmonary reflex, directly it acts on the alveolus. When the nasal cavity is not well ventilated, oxygen from the alveolus will not diffuse properly into the blood circulation. So these two are having little bit difference, and this type of patient always feel dyspneic. If you see most of the functions like pulmonary function tests are normal, but still the patient feel breathlessness because there is low oxygen diffusion. Now, some patient develop carpulmonary due to chronic nasal obstruction. Carpulmonary. Yeah. The next is the olfaction. It is the less important for a human being, but it is more important for lower animals. Why? The sense of smell is well developed in lower animals. What is the function? It gives the environmental danger. You can see some of the animals are so active. They can smell from long distance, like dogs. They can smell the things from long distance. Okay, and this mainly protect the animal. Has got protective function, and protective function. It gives the environmental danger, warn the animal about the danger. Now has certain roles in breeding season. There are certain pheromones secreted from the animals, a small insect, which help uh, in breeding season, and this hormone can be smelled by lower animals, and for that olfaction mechanism is important. Yeah, comparatively less important for human being, already we have discussed. Now, but this is important for exam point of view. You have to know the pathway of olfaction. This is a question for you. The pathway of olfaction, I can say here, Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So olfactory epithelium is found situated in the olfactory area, that is at the roof of the nasal cavity and little bit at the upper part of the septum and upper part of the lateral wall. So what is it constitute? It constitutes the olfactory fibers. This olfactory fiber enter the intracranial cavity through the cribriform plate. Cribriform plate. There are small holes. Through that holes, the olfactory axon fibers enter into the intracranial cavity. Inside the intracranial cavity, now this from the epithelium nerve goes passes through the cribriform plate, now enter the intracranial cavity, and there it made the mitral cell, the second order cell, where it formed the synapse, and second order neuron starts, and there where it formed the synapse, there it form a elevation which is called olfactory bulb. Okay, the mitral cell body stays there, and after that the olfactory, the axons again starts and goes towards the olfactory um, area, and that is called olfactory tract. Okay, all the axons of the second order neuron. Now through this it goes, and they are represented at the pre-piriform cortex and amygdala nucleus. So the area of olfaction. So this is the olfactory pathway. You have to get it by heart, and this is a schematic diagram. I can show you one more diagram here. Yeah, so this is, you can see the olfactory area where nasal epithelium. So here this is the nasal cavity completely. Above this area is the olfactory epithelium. Below this area is the respiratory epithelium, pseudostratified columnar ciliated epithelium, and this one is the olfactory epithelium. So the first order neuron passes through the, this is the skull base, cribriform plate, passes, the axon passes through the cribriform plate and goes inside the intracranial cavity. Okay. Now inside intracranial cavity there is olfactory bulb. Yeah. So you can see the this is the inside the intracranial cavity. This axon comes, and here in this form the glomeruli, and this is called olfactory bulb. And these are the mitral cells, second order cell. The synapses, first order neuron, synapses the second order from the glomeruli, or this is the olfactory bulb. And this mitral cell, the action goes together, this from olfactory tract, and ultimately they're presented in the olfactory areas, prepariform cortex and amygdala nucleus. Yeah, so from here you can see intracranial cavity. This is the olfactory bulb, olfactory tract, and ultimately presented at the prepariform cortex and amygdala nucleus. Yeah, mitral cell of the olfactory bulb. Now, there are certain disorder of smell that we need to know a little bit. So, what are the disorder? One is the anosmia, complete absence of the sense of smell. As per like today we are having coronavirus infection, there are some patients are getting absolute anosmia, no sense of smell, and it recovers. They recovers after a few days, but there are certain other conditions also where there will be anosmia, and in some conditions recovery chance is very rare. We'll discuss what are the different causes of anosmia. Another condition is called parasmia. Parasmia means perverted sense of smell. Means if you are giving the patient something, some flower, he will test it as some fruit or something else. So there is a different in sense of smell. Okay, that is called parasmia. Another term is there which is called cacosmia. Cacosmia means bad sense, perceiving the bad smell. For example, you are giving a flower to a person to smell, and he will feel that it's a very ugly thing with very bad smell. Okay, that is called cacosmia. Sometimes it is happening in coronavirus infection also. Some people are having disturbance in the smell, either parasmia. Some people receive as very bad smell, that is called cacosmia. Yes. So etiology or disorder of smell, there are certain things. Sometimes it comes as a short notes. What are the causes of disorder of smell, anosmia or parasmia? So there are three main groups here. One is a head injury, one is a viral infection, and poor odorant access to olfactory mucosa. So head injury is mainly because of road traffic accident. Viral infection is mainly the uh, cold virus. Okay, so those viruses damage the epithelium. That is the olfactory mucosa causing anosmia. Now, poor odorant access to the olfactory mucosa. These are commonly because of some obstacles. Either it is a high DNS, or some obstacles like nasal polyp. So basic is that air will not move superiorly. It has to reach the olfactory area, then the odorant particles should be deposited there to have the sense of smell. So if it's not there, then patient cannot feel the sense of smell. Even epithelium is absolutely normal. And it's because of some amount of abstraction. And there are certain other conditions like tumors. It may be benign tumor or malignant tumor. Neurological disorder occurs in case of diabetes. Diabetes, there will be neuropathies, and in these neuropathies, it may involve the olfactory fiber also, and patient will have olfactory disorders like anosmia. Maybe some other neurological conditions also. And genetic disorders, some people has anosmia since birth, and it's a genetical problem. Clinical assessment of olfaction. Yeah, how to assess a patient come with defect in olfaction, sense of smell. Usually, you have to give the common order to the patient, and ask whether he's able to smell or not. You should not give any irritants. The common are what you have to give is the lemon, is the coffee, the common flowers, incense sticks, like that. Very pleasant smell you have to give, but you should not give any irritants like alcohol, ammonia, because by giving alcohol and ammonia, patient will tell, yes, I'm able to smell, but exactly this is not smell, these are irritations. So any irritants will go, that will irritate the epithelium, and patient can feel some amount of activities, but these are not the order. These are just irritations. Now the squeeze bottle technique, there are small bottles with different smell. You can squeeze small bottle inside the nose, and you can ask the patient whether he's able to smell or not. By that also, you can know the sense of smell. Now, upset method, this is a method developed by University of Pennsylvania. So that is called University of Pennsylvania Smell Identification Test. So here there will be different cards, okay, and the patient will be given, and patient will have to write down that he's able to smell or not, and accordingly you have to calculate and find out whether patient olfaction is good or not. Quantitative olfactometry, yes, so there is a machine called olfactometry. It can identify the sense of olfaction, sense of smell. That also can be used for clinical assessment for the patient with problem in olfaction. Yeah, so this is about the physiology of nose, and you have to study hard for exam. This is good, important for exam point of view. Okay, so this is all about. Any question you can ask in the chat box. Okay.